toddler time when they were little bitty, so I have lots of fond memories in this room and with the Fayetteville Public Library. So I'm honored to be here, giving back my knowledge because I have gained a lot of knowledge just being in this building. So happy to be here. Thank you for coming. Thanks for anyone that's watching online. This is Pitch Deck 101. My name's Elizabeth Pringer. My background, as Heather kind of went through, involves politics, nonprofit, copywriting, brand strategy. I'm developing a postpartum recovery product called the Assicle because women's asses deserve better. I'm sorry for the profanity, but it is aligned with the brand that I'm developing, and also co-founding FemHealth Founders. All of this past incorporates my love of connecting with people and using words to do that. And so pitch decks happen to fall within that category of storytelling. So happy to be here and share my knowledge around this. I wanted to start this off. I got to meet the two of you a little bit and learn a bit about your background and how you would best utilize pitch decks and pitch deck content creation. The phrase pitches be crazy always comes to mind because pitches, the idea of pitching something can be really intimidating. It can make you go a little nutty. But your deck should not reflect that. We want your deck to be simple and clear and compelling. A lot of times pitch decks are used to pitch to investors, which is kind of how I developed this deck in particular, is for investors, but it can be used for a variety of uses, which we'll go over towards the end. But investors get a lot of these. People see a lot of pitches. They see a lot of decks, and you don't want it to be confusing. You want it to be memorable. You want them to be able to understand what you're saying. So really, that simple approach is really important and effective with developing pitch decks. So I wanted to kind of start off with one of the main goals for a pitch deck is to tell your story and to get the outcomes you want. And a great starting point before you even start developing your deck is to understand your audience. Know who your audience is, know who you're wanting to get in front of and what you're wanting from them, whether it's to get accepted into a program or to raise capital or to sell your story to a publisher. Know what you want as you're developing this deck. Always have that end goal in mind and keep your story top of mind. And don't shy away from telling your story. Don't shy away from bragging on what you're doing. And I'll address that in a slide here in just a second. But also think about each slide as a really valuable piece of real estate. So anything that you include on your slide, you want to make sure it brings value to the conversation. Whoop, is it not showing? Tech issues. So anything that you include in your deck, just make sure it's adding to the story. It's adding to the ask. It's adding value to the conversation. So this is a great example of what a slide should not look like because it has so many words. Obviously, I love words. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. But this is really busy. It's confusing. It's hard to read. You can only imagine if you were to pull this slide up in front of an investor or in front of an audience member, they're immediately going to stop listening to you and they're going to try to read all the words on the slide. It's very distracting. But for our purposes, oh, geez, sorry. Let's see. Hold on, sorry. Okay, we'll take a look. This is very clear. This is very simple. Let's see. Hi. I tend to break technology, so this is not surprising. Well, fortunately, if I were in your position, I'd be like, just because I don't know what to do. We hosted, with FemHealth Founders, Heather mentioned FemHealth Founders, we hosted a roundtable a few months ago, and I was in charge of AV. I was like, I'm the last person that you want in charge of AV. We were trying to moderate an in-person panel discussion and an online community, and my blood pressure, I'm not designed for that. Oh, cool. Okay, thank you so much.
I've heard of you.
Cool.
I think through Instagram.
What is it? Oh, Femme Health Founders? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We're doing some cool stuff. Did y'all see this this slide?
Yes, thank
Okay. So again, you do not want your slide to look like this. There are too many words. There's too much to read. It's too distracting. But for our purposes, I thought this would be a great slide to, I'll send this out in an email if that's okay. So you can have this at your fingertips and kind of use this as a guide. And now these are just recommendations. You are more than welcome to stray from this if you feel like it's appropriate. You know your audience better than I do. But a pitch deck should be brief and provide just enough information for the audience to understand your concept and pique their interest. A lot of times people will say your pitch deck, you kind of think of Shark Tank when you think of startups, but you're not going to get funding after presenting this one time. The purpose of your pitch deck should be to get a next meeting with an investor, to get a next meeting with a publicist, to get next meeting with the program that you're wanting to get into. So don't feel like you have to include everything. Just include the most pertinent information that's going to want them to continue having a conversation with you. So kind of rule of thumb length is 10 to 12 slides. Your overall presentation should be about 15 minutes and include time in that 15 minutes for Q&A. So I don't like presenting verbally. So I try to keep my pitches to about 7-8 minutes and then ask for conversation with the audience, with the investors, what have you. So I'll kind of run through these building blocks, starting with overview, the who we are. You've probably heard of an elevator pitch, and you probably know that people's attention spans are about 7 seconds. So if you can squeeze in the who you are in that 7 to 15 seconds, that's great. It's really hard to do, so if you can nail that, that's really helpful. Start practicing that now. Actually, I would recommend really getting that tight and be able to just spout it off anytime someone asks you, so what do you do? Talking about the opportunity, what's happening in the market, and why now is a good time. So it's a book on a topic that's really relevant to today's society that you think a lot of readers would be interested in. What is that opportunity, and how is the publishing world what's happening in the publishing world that makes this idea relevant? And the problem, what are you trying to solve, and why is it a problem? The problem is always going to be incredibly important to communicate clearly and make it really, making it understood that this is a massive problem, and then following that up with the solution, why your solution is going to help that problem, solve that problem. And again, kind of reinforcing that this is a big pain point that people want to see a solution on the market for. Can you see around me? Sorry. The shadows. That's okay. Then showcasing your traction. How do you know this will be successful? Do you have a sign up of interested purchasers? Do you have metrics that you can pull from the market analysis? Have you seen examples of this happening in other industries that you can replicate for your own purposes? Then stepping into that customer and market. Who are your customers? How well defined are they? Really showing that you know who is going to be buying your solution or buying into your idea. If you have any revenue to showcase, and this is for startup purposes, that revenue piece is going to catch some attention big time. Showcasing your competition. We don't like to talk about the other guys or girls, but we need to show what's happening in the market that your competitors are doing, showcasing your knowledge of the industry, and showing that you know that there are some risks involved in what you're doing, but that you're okay with that, you're knowledgeable about that, and you're committed to moving forward. Showing your business model. How will you actually make money? When we're talking to investors want to know that you're planning to make a profit, and you're planning for them to make a profit as well. Showcasing your financial modeling and projections is helpful. And this business model is also relevant to non-startups, to non-investor pitches. So it can apply to publishing. It can apply to the business concept that you're applying for a program for. The team slide is always one of my favorite. I love to see who's involved in this process. If it's just you, showcase your talents. Don't water down your expertise. Kind of show what you're doing, show why you're the person to be doing this, and then also showcase the other people on your team who are also spending a lot of time and energy and expertise on your product, your company, your solution. And then the use of funds. If you are asking for fund, make that clear ask and show how you will use the resources. Funds are not always the call to action at the end, so we can kind of talk about how we can approach that towards the end if you have questions about that. And again, that was really messy, so don't ever let your slide look like that. Make it real good. So your story matters. It can be your story. You can talk about your customer story. You can talk about stories within the industry or your venture growth story. Simply putting together a deck that looks nice isn't going to cut it. There needs to be a storytelling element to it. People today want to be entertained. They want to be compelled. They want to be pulled in and find a connection point. So being able to tell your personal story or a story of someone that is impacted by this problem that you're addressing is really powerful. So I would definitely recommend spending some time knowing your story and practicing that and asking for feedback from the people around you that know you. What is my story? What's the most compelling point? What should I be focused on? Because if you don't outline your story in a concise way, it can get really confusing. It can get messy. And then if people don't understand what you're saying, they're probably going to stop listening in an intentional way. So get your story. I have some resources here at the end that can give you some further guidance on how to develop your story as well. And then making it real good, continuing on that theme, your design matters too. We talked about that previous slide where there's just a ton of words. It's really confusing. It's really messy. That consistent branding when it comes to your fonts, your colors, your placement, that really makes a difference. If your slides look good, that reflects so much better on your brand versus the alternative where it's messy, it's confusing, it's hard to follow. Using compelling, high-quality imagery. Don't use anything that's really pixelated. If you can't find high-quality imagery, I would just not use them at all. Focus on the clear, concise story, pretty colors, big fonts that are easy to read. And if you have a lot of data to share, try to use charts and graphs and timelines, things that people can look at easily and digest versus lots of numbers, lots of bullet points. And if you have any spelling errors, I'm going to be really upset. So make sure you double check all your spelling, your grammatical errors. Typos would just make me really sad. Here are a couple of resources that I have used over the past year or so. Guy Kawasaki has created a great method for developing pitch decks in a really concise way using this 10-slide maximum. And then there's a book called Get Backed, and they have a great section on building a pitch deck and creating your story. I would recommend that Get Backed for that storyline that I touched on a moment ago. They have a great kind of recipe to follow for developing your story and creating your storyline. I feel like I rushed through that really fast. So bless you, do you have any questions or do you have any examples of ways that your deck has kind of caused some feelings of discomfort or anxiety that we can kind of talk through and maybe provide some recommendations for? I'm not sure if anyone on the interwebs would have any questions as well.
I'm just being a sponge.
Sponge it up.
Okay.
Heather, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going to come closer, so.
Yeah.
It's not really a question, but one of the things that you mentioned about the importance also of the elevator pitch.
Yes.
Going back to that.
lot of people don't realize that's something you can come to the library to do.
Oh,
Because we have like podcasting booths. So you can write your pitch, you can get really comfortable with your elevator pitch. And what I would recommend for people to do is to come in, go into the podcast whisper room and record your elevator pitch. So you can
Yeah.
hear what it sounds like back. And that way you think, you can really hear what other people are hearing at that point.
Yeah.
And get extremely comfortable with it. But then once you hear it, then you can adjust it how you need. And that's a resource everybody can come into the library and our Center for Innovation and use for free. You can book that. But I can't stress the importance of not only being comfortable with that elevator pitch, but to stop and record it and hear it back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's an elevator pitch.
I'm sorry.
I've heard the phrase before, but I don't know what an elevator pitch
Oh,
is.
sure. Well, I'm not sure if the people online could have heard what you just said. Could they hear that?
Probably.
It's gonna.
Should I speak it?
Sorry.
Should I speak it?
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, well, so that's a great recommendation. Heather was just saying the podcasting room, which I need to check that out. Practicing your elevator pitch, and one question we have is what is an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is essentially your. We'll go back to this this first slide. Oop. I can figure out how to do it. So this the overview.
Mm-hmm.
It's who you are in a matter of 10 seconds.
I see.
So what your business is. So for Pros Creative, we do brand messaging, storytelling, and content strategy for businesses to better share their stories to the audiences that matter.
Okay.
So that was really short, really concise. I think that's what an elevator pitch is, but it's
Okay.
very short, it's easy to understand, and it's easy for people to remember. So think of yourself in an elevator. We don't really have a lot of elevators in Arkansas, but you're on floor number 1, and you have from floor number 1 to floor number 7 to tell the person next to you what your business is
Okay.
and what you do. And it's a really powerful tool.
Okay.
It sounds easy to do, but it actually takes quite a bit of practice and paring down. And again, I would, I think I mentioned this earlier, ask the people around you that know what you're doing and know what you're wanting to do with your business. Ask them for feedback on that pitch. And don't take anything personally. If they say, this doesn't sound quite right, because it may sound right in your mind, but it's important to know who you're talking to and to be mindful of other people ingesting your message.
I understand. Okay.
I'm trying to think if I have any examples. I should have brought examples of decks that could be helpful. I have one at Canva. I highly recommend as a tool for actually developing the deck. They have some beautiful templates that you can use as a starting point as you're building out the content. You don't have to be a graphic designer anymore to design a really nice, riveting pitch deck. Canva is a great tool for this. Let's see.
I definitely second that. Canva is it's very accessible to people who haven't done that before.
Yes, and they've started. They've introduced some new features like whiteboarding, kind of similar to a Miro board, to help you map out your ideas, map out your business. So I'm a big fan of Canva, and they have a free version as well, so you don't have to pay for it. I'll show you the Assicles. Am I going to get anyone in trouble for sure? Okay. I did create my first prototype of the Assicle was designed down in the innovation lab downstairs. So I was able to work with Shelby on creating a 3D print mock-up of my first iteration of prototype. But this is my newest iteration, the Assicle, because women's asses deserve better. So opening up with a really nice cover slide is really helpful to showcase your business, your branding, kind of, and tiptoeing into your personality, your brand personality. showcasing the pain point that we're solving. Of almost 2.6 million childbirths in the U.S., there's a 95% chance of vaginal tearing, also known as perineal laceration. This is probably a little too wordy, but I've been sending this out to people without the opportunity to present in front of them, so I'm including a bit more text than I normally would. This slide kind of outlines the competitive landscape, the products that are currently on the market that just aren't doing it for us, that we think we can do better. And then our solution is a silicone-based reusable cold-warm compress anatomically designed for the female body to provide pain relief for the perineal and vaginal region. Good for tearing from childbirth, hemorrhoids, other butt stuff, no judgment, and highlight some of the features that are kind of our value prop. It's very soft, it's silicone, it's reusable, it's not creating a lot of waste for the environment. We're highlighting our customer here. Again, this is too much text, but again, I needed to include more so people understand the context. So showcasing that we understand who we're going to be marketing to and why this product is a good fit for that particular demographic. So I would be presenting this to investors potentially. So highlighting the marketing channels, how is this product going to actually get into the hands of consumers? Showcasing our profitability, so the market size for this particular product, showcasing that it's a large market. It's a desirable market to be in. It can create a lot of profit for myself and the investors that are going to be funding this company, hopefully. This is kind of a good example. Again, there's more text than there should be, but using that timeline versus just having words up on the slide. So showcasing the accomplished milestones of the accelerator programs, filing a patent, secured seed funding, prototyping, starting downstairs in the library. Thank you, Fayetteville Library. And then kind of outlining, this slide is incomplete, but outlining what the next 12 months we need to do in the next 12 months to bring them along on the journey. Again, my favorite slide, the team, showcasing all of our strengths and our expertise. I'm a brand strategist, I'm a mom, I understand this pain point firsthand. I have hundreds of women friends who have also experienced this, that I've gained information, insights into the problem. I've done extensive customer discovery with moms on their pain points, so talking about that, highlighting my expertise. I know this problem inside and out, and I'm the best person to be bringing this forward. My medical advisor, kind of giving me additional credibility that I'm working with a medical professional on this product who knows what she knows vaginas. My mentors have extensive background in CPG and healthcare, and I'm just really proud of this team. Showcasing our capital requirements, and how we're going to use this funding in a very simplistic way, so it's not too overwhelming, it's not too much information. And then opening it up for Q&A, like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why do women need this? And hopefully continuing that conversation, piquing their interest, and being accessible to answer these important questions. Does that help give some context around how you can use some of that content building blocks to...
Yes, it does, in fact.
And actually, I'm ashamed, I did not start my deck with more of a compelling story, my own story, because again, I recommend that to other people, but it's intimidating. It feels, a little exposing to do it for yourself, but it's compelling. People want to hear your story. So I'm working to weave that back in. Any questions on kind of the flow, the outline, the usage? I know some people ask, how do you even, why do you even need a pitch deck? Like, how do you even get your pitch deck out? For me, and actually we were talking about this earlier, there's some amazing accelerator programs and business incubator programs throughout Northwest Arkansas that are intended to help entrepreneurs and small business owners accelerate their businesses. And a pitch deck can be a great resource for helping to share your story and help share your what's the word I'm looking for? Call to action, for a lack of better words. showing that you have really thought through what you need and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, you would have had to,
Hmm?
you would have had to come up with this concept.
Well, it's it's kind of sad that some businesses seem to just have an idea of, oh, I want to do this, but they don't really understand the problem that they're solving. And a lot of people who are either investing in businesses or are interested in supporting businesses, they want to feel like you're actually providing a solution to a real problem. And it's something that I know the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the U of A, I'm sure a lot of the workshops here at the library, reminding people to really think about the problem that they're solving and always bringing everything back to that problem. Like, this is the problem. And not as much on the solution. Like, obviously we want to talk about the solution because that's what we're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into. But that problem is so important.
Going back to the product itself, you said it was made out of what kind of material?
Silicone.
How many, and you freeze it, right?
Yes.
How many freeze and thaw cycles have you tested as durable for?
We're still doing the product testing, but so far, the lifespan of silicone being used in that application is about 5 years. So it has a pretty long shelf life and use life.
That would be at least, for the average young woman or whatever, that would be about at least 1.5, 2 children.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, that's worth it right there.
Right. We think so.
Engineering background.
Oh, very good.
Well, that's why I think in terms of materials and,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you. So pitching in general, any questions? Any fears that we can talk through and overcome?
Or if you see me on Shark Tank next week, you know I've absorbed the material exponentially.
I hope so. And actually, Barbara Corcoran, I think, she's one of the Shark Tank judges. That Get Backed book, she's on the cover of it saying, anyone that pitches to Shark Tank needs to read this book. So I was like, oh, cool, okay. I don't intend on going on Shark Tank, but it's good to have this information just in case you ever end up doing that.
And here I usually flip to the channels, oh, is that? Well, I'm not selling anything, so now I gotta really study.
Yeah, yeah.
I really think going through your example with that was kind of outstanding to demonstrate that opportunity then for the questions that come up. And then just to make sure you are prepared for any type of question that might come at that point.
Yes, yeah, it's true. You aren't able to see this. I think it's on a different deck, but I have probably 15 extra slides called the appendix, and it's not a body part, but an appendix of a book. Playing with that fun verbiage, but just because the recommendation is 10 slides, you can build up to 20, 30 slides and pick and choose what slide to include in your pitch, depending on the audience that you're pitching to. There's one article that I used in my research that had, I would say probably 20 different use cases for a pitch deck. So it could be investor pitches, it could be team pitches, it can be, I'll have to dig up that article. It was real, I knew that pitch decks were needed in a number of scenarios, but I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. Kind of just specifically telling the story of how your venture has come from starting point to where you are today. The way you develop the pitch deck, that concept remains the same, but it can be used in a number of different scenarios. So I thought that was really interesting, and it really opened up my eyes to the value of knowing how to develop a deck. It's a skill set.
Okay. You have a reference sheet for the books that you read on this, or you just out and down?
So the two that I noted in the back, I would highly recommend Guy Kawasaki. I think this is, that image on the deck takes you directly to his website, and it gives even down to the size of font. that they recommend using. He gets really granular with his tips.
Okay.
And I think this guy Kawasaki is what the university, the OEI office, uses this method as they're teaching their students how to effectively develop decks.
He's the one who did Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all the other
That was
finance ones.
Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
That was
Yes,
actually-
that's right.
That was actually Kiyosaki. This is Kawasaki. I don't mean to be correcting, but I've
No,
read-
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, Kiyosaki's the guy that goes and does the financial conventions and all this, and the book, The Rich Dad and Poor Dad. And then Kawasaki, I think I've got a book from him from here about
Okay.
2 years ago. So
Oh, good.
they're similar, but they're not the same.
Okay. So then, no, never mind.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
wasn't, but
And then this Get Backed, I use this almost as a Bible these days. It's really good information. It's primarily for startup ventures, like people that are actually seeking, millions of dollars from investors. But again, I think it can be applied for a number of different purposes.
okay.
And Canva. Go get you a Canva account.
Absolutely.
You can, I get down, I can spend a lot of time on Canva. It's a lot of fun, so be prepared to dedicate some time to it, but it is really helpful.
Okay. So you did this on your own without a communications degree or anything like that?
No, I was a communications major at the U of A
Okay.
long time ago. I wasn't really expecting, I didn't really quite know how I would use that, but I picked it because it required the least amount of numbers. Which is why I'm a words person to this day. I've always been a words person.
Seems to work.
It works, yeah, so far. So I think we still have 20 minutes or so. So if y'all want to ask questions, if you want me to review anything that you have developed, I'd be happy to.
Maybe when we wrap up, I'll ask you your writing business and if you do any of that or proofreading or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah. Here's my contact information. Would love for you to follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. Elizabeth Pringer Pros.
Okay.
Would also love for you to follow Fem Health Founders. We're doing some really cool work in the area around women's health innovation and supporting women entrepreneurs. And we're launching our first accelerator cohort in spring of 2023. I think our applications actually open next week. Yes, they do, on the 14th. So we're excited about that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, it's been an honor.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you. And I'll email these slides out to anyone who wants them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So kind of a detour from the pitch. When you